Greetings everybody from my 2018 BMW 540D diesel US model. This is an extremely rare car with only about 298 of these ever sold in the US before they pulled the plug. I am giving an update video on this. It's been sitting most of the winter. I only take it out after the rain has washed away all the salt and the roads are basically dry, because I plan on keeping it indefinitely. Check this out with the headlights. They steer when you go around turns. I don't know if the video is going to pick up on that. Now, actually, I'm not sure if that's part of an option package or something. But yeah, I think you have to be going a certain speed. But yeah, when I turn the steering wheel, you can see the headlights also steer. I think the only other car I had that on was an S-Class. that may come standard on the S-Class, but it might be part of one of the packages that this car came with. So this car I have owned, I don't know the exact date I bought it, but if I haven't quite owned it for 2 years, I'm certainly coming up on 2 years. And wow, how time flies. It's still, right now driving this thing, it still feels like I just bought it yesterday, and it's just like my new toy. This is one of my favorite cars of all time. And I guess you could even say it was one of my dream cars. Before I bought this one, I was actually looking for one of these for a long time, and I could just never find the right combination of price and condition and whatever. I missed out on one that I'm not going to say probably should have bought, because I'm very happy with this one, but about a year before, it came up on one of the auction sites, but I didn't get quite high enough on the price. Turns out that was actually a way better deal than I got for this one, because I bought this one at the peak of the crazy market, when all the cars became scarce and whatever. But no regrets. I did not buy it to make money on it. I bought it because it was exactly what I wanted. This car I bought actually from a Porsche dealer in Texas and had it shipped. And I particularly wanted a low-mile car that still had some warranty left on it. But I also wanted a southern car because I knew then it would have never been driven in salt or snow or anything like that. The underside of this car is absolutely pristine. And although I do occasionally drive this one in the rain, it's not very often. I use my other cars for inclement weather. So this one is just kind of something I'm preserving. One interesting thing is it takes a long time for the engine to warm up in this car. Like, I think you can even drive it like 20 minutes and the engine still won't be warmed up. One super amazing, impressive thing about this car, you can see my overall average fuel mileage is 37.6, and that's actually about the same as my Nissan Versa overall average. A lot of that is highway driving. The vast majority of the rest of it is country roads like you see now. I do a lot of spirited driving in this car. And even with that, it's just unbelievable the fuel economy this thing gets. If you didn't see my video of my big road trip that I made a few months ago, I was averaging like 43 miles to the gallon on the highway. Just incredible. And then the power and acceleration. I don't know if I actually posted the video with my race box, but I did an Otis 60 with my race box. Now my Otis 60s are just basically stop and then plant the pedal. I don't do any like revving up or launching or braking gas at the same time. I don't do any of that. I just basically mat the pedal and see what happens. And even with that, I still got 5.6 seconds Otis 60. So this thing is just super quick. The torque is amazing. I mean, it really puts you in your seat, especially right from a takeoff. I've talked before about my history, my service history with this car, so we can kind of talk about the last year and work backwards. So for the last year, really haven't had any issues with it. The only thing that is kind of intermittent, and I attribute this to the car sitting for a couple weeks at a time, even though I do keep it on a battery tender, and that is, it'll say key missing. So I'll come in to the car, push the start button, and it'll say key missing, and then I will have to actually hold it. I don't know if you can see that on the video. Right there, there's a place you can hold the key, and then it'll start. See, I'm going to turn down the heat. It's finally starting to warm up. It is pretty cold outside. It's 19 degrees. So yeah, other than that, I mean, it's basically been flawless for me the past year. There's one lingering thing from the problems I had before, especially when you first start it, but even after, you can smell some exhaust coming out of the engine compartment. I'm not sure exactly the root cause of that, but when as long as you're moving, you really don't smell anything. It's only like when you're sitting, maybe with the windows open or whatever, that you can smell it. I mean, not horrible, but it's definitely there. Now this car still has the open recall for the EGR cooler, and I had decided to wait to get that done until it actually becomes a problem. I think you have like 10 years to do a recall. So, and this car right now is, I don't know, 6 years old maybe. Maybe 5 years old, because I think it was sold in 18, so 19, 21, 22, 23, 5.5 years old. Yeah, something like that. So I'm just going to monitor. If I start losing coolant, then I will have that addressed. But I think that's the symptom, is that the EGR cooler, and I believe it's integrated, EGR valve and EGR cooler are one unit on this car. But yeah, it starts leaking coolant internally, and I do believe it can also leak exhaust externally. So that may definitely have something to do with my issue. Let's see here. I'll bet you I'm not going to get the turn signal here. I'm going to drop the phone a little bit so the cars next to me don't see me filming. Well, at least while we're stopped. Anyway, it's morning rush hour, if you want to call it that, for where I live. It's not a very populated area. I think my town has 30,000 people. Let's do a quick little blast here. Yeah, that torque it's addictive. It's really fantastic. And then the way it handles too, this car has the 19-inch wheels on it, which I don't know if that was standard on the 540D. It might have been. I do have the Windows sticker, but I don't remember exactly what options it has. I think it had it's either $66,000 or $68,000 MSRP. Go ahead and set the cruise here. Wow, the sunrise looks pretty cool, especially on the phones. It's a nice view. Go ahead and get over here. So yeah, I'm just taking it out for a spin, and I think we're going to have a few clear days coming up, smack dab in the middle of winter here. So I'll probably be driving this a bit more to enjoy it while keeping the salt off of it. It has pretty much stayed clean all winter. I did drive through a couple puddles of water. We had a lot of rain a few days ago, and it left like puddles that ran across the road. I would prefer not to do that, but it's fine. I can tend to get a little paranoid, even though, you know, like, I know the car's not going to, like, immediately rust if I drive it through a little bit of water, but I tend to get a little oversensitive. But, you know, there's a lot of people that get very sensitive about certain things with cars. Some things that bother me may not bother other people, and vice versa. But, you know, it's all us car people, we have our quirks and features. So anyway, some issues this car had. Shortly after I bought it, it had a check engine light, and it was an issue with I think it was the active DEF tank. It's the part that has all the electronics in it, so I don't know if it was the actual tank itself, or just the electronic part of the tank. So that was covered under warranty. The part, I looked it up, it has a retail of like over $1,000. Don't know how much labor. I'm guessing that was easily a $1,500 to $2,000 warranty job. The other thing it had was when I would floor it from a stop during the 1-2 shift, I would get a shuddering. And I did some research. There's actually a TSB out there for that actually affects a whole bunch of different models of BMWs. I did a video just about that, but for those of you who haven't seen it, it essentially amounts to BMW put the wrong transfer case fluid in from the factory, and the fix is to replace it with, I think it's called DTF1, something like that, and reset the adaptations. So after that, all right, what do we got going on here? I guess I can't really squeeze through those two trucks, so I gotta let this happen. Yeah, so after they replaced that, after a couple 100 miles, I noticed a huge decrease. I don't know if this guy's, I guess the person merging on the highway has decided to go really slow. But, you know, that's actually a relative thing on this car. I just looked down at the speedometer and realized I'm doing 70, and it feels like I'm going about 30. That's one of the qualities of this car, is you can drive it super fast and you just can't really tell. Alright, so let's get the cruise set in 79. That should be fine. Well, now this truck's going really fast. Anyway, back to the DTF1. So, yeah, it diminished greatly, and then the TSB says that after the clutches get saturated, or whatever they're called, that it will get even better. So I'm going to say it fixed at 98%. It is still not completely flawless. but sometimes you don't feel it at all. Sometimes it's just ever so slight. Most people who are not car people that are tuned into the details would never even notice. But I'm happy with the resolution, but I did have to fight the dealer for that, because even though their shop foreman said he felt it, he backtracked and then said he didn't feel it, and they ended up I fought them. They ended up replacing it as a goodwill or whatever you want to call it. But man, I really had to fight to get them to do that. Dealerships don't want to do warranty work. But some other issues I was having was the turbo had sprung an exhaust leak. And I just happened to randomly catch that by hanging my phone down in the engine compartment and filming the side of the engine where the turbo was, and I saw that the turbo was covered in soot. So, and then also one of the turbo lines was spewing oil. Caught that all on camera. So they actually had a I don't know what you call them, field representative come and look at this car, and he actually directed replacement of the turbo. So that was done, I want to say, at like 26,000 miles, and it's been fine ever since. I actually haven't hung my camera down there anymore to look at it, but it really doesn't matter because the car runs and drives fine, and so I guess even if it does spring a leak again, I'm not going to pay however many thousands, $6,000 to have that done. Chances are most people with these cars have that same thing going on with the turbo, but just never notice. I mean, it really technically wasn't a showstopper, but it wasn't right. So I'm glad they fixed that. They also replaced my valve cover and all the gaskets and seals. They actually had to take out all the injectors, so I got all new injector seals as well. With such low mileage, it really didn't matter as much. I ought to slow down. I'm gonna the speed limit has dropped. That only tends to become an issue on cars with well over 100,000 miles, where you have the potential for Black Death or whatever. But at the rate I drive this car, that's something I'm probably not even going to have to think about for many, many, many years. I average, so far, I've put about 17,000 miles on this car in 2 years. That's probably going to be about the same pace. I think I need to speed up here because this car is going the same speed I am, and I want to try to get ahead of these other cars so I can get over. The truck is putting his brakes on. So what else? Had a squeaking noise coming from the weather stripping seals on the doors, and actually the representative directed a cleaning and lubrication. I don't know what they used or how they did it, but I actually have not had the issue since then. So there is something they can do if you have one of this body style BMW and you're having a squeaking sound coming from your doors, like going over bumps or whatever. There's something they can do to fix that. I don't know if there's a TSB or anything out there for that, but it worked, whatever they did. Let's see, sun visor. I had to have one of my sun visors replaced because it would just fall down on its own. They've been fine ever since. I had to have the center armrest / door replaced because the hook or whatever broke and you couldn't close it. Technically, one other issue I have right now, and it's not even really an issue, is over on that side can't really see it now because of too much light. The LED strip up above the wood, very common issue on these as I understand it. It kind of gets really dim. Not worried about that. Some people have come up with fixes on YouTube for that. I'm not even going to worry about that. It still works. It's just dim on that one side, but it still looks great, especially at night. So, you know, one particular reason I wanted to get this this body style, because, you know, there was the 535D that came before this, which is also an awesome car, is I just wanted the latest in tech and design. And you know, it's funny, when this design first came out, I didn't love it, but my goodness, it has aged well, because the shape of the headlights and whatever, that's what a lot of cars are going to today. So, you know, as this car ages, it actually looks newer as time goes on. I'm gonna let this truck get around. I think he might be in a hurry. Hopefully he speeds up. Well, I'm gonna have to hit the brakes. I should have just stayed over in the left lane. Sometimes I'm just too nice on the highway. That's okay. What we got here? Fords, new Fords. No, random cars, right? Yeah, random cars. And what else? What else has gone wrong with this car? I haven't done much in the way of maintenance. It's still on its original coolant, but they don't make it easy to change the coolant on this car. So I'm gonna do that eventually. I like the idea of a 5-year coolant change. The brake fluid I'm gonna do in the spring, and I'm hoping I can use the same method on the brake fluid change that I have done on my Mercedes-Benzes, which is Mercedes Source made this specialized custom pump that has you can screw on to the reservoir and pump up pressure, and then all you have to do is just open each of the bleeder screws and it'll push through fresh brake fluid. So hoping that works the same way. I like to do brake fluid every 2 to 3 years. The oil, the car has been yelling at me because I actually haven't gone 10,000 miles in the past year. So it actually yells at me and kind of locks me out of all the functions on that screen right there until I force it to close the message. When you're overdue on time for the oil change, it wants you to call BMW, and just for fun I actually pushed that button to call BMW, and I was just like playing dumb, and I said, my car told me to call you and I have no idea why. And he's like, you need an oil change. I'm like, well, I'm not going to do that right now. And so anyway, I don't think he was amused, but I was. And I'm not going to reset that error until I actually do change the oil. One oops that I had when I changed the oil the last time. So the proper oil for this car, I think it's LL2 or LL12 or something like that. And this has happened twice where the wrong oil was put in. So I changed the oil shortly after I got it because the Porsche dealer that I bought it from put in the wrong oil. And that actually happened to the original owner. I did get to talk to the original owner shortly after I bought the car, because his info was in the car, and he told me about his history with the car and sent me a couple pictures of when he owned it. So that was really cool. He told me he was forced to trade it in to get a new Porsche for his wife, and he was getting ready to go buy this back, but I beat him to it. It's kind of interesting. So, and I seriously do not remember what I was just talking about. Oh yeah, the oil. So I had a little oops. And you know, you would think that I would know better. So for those of you who have changed oil on a German car with the cartridge type filter, you know, it has like the plastic lid, and within the plastic lid you put the rubber O-ring, you replace it. So I had taken out the rubber O-ring, put in a new one, but I wasn't paying attention and I put it too low. I actually put it slightly below the groove. So as I was tightening it, it wasn't going in properly because it was getting blocked by that. And I ended up stripping out the lid a little bit. I was able to see like a little bit of the plastic scraping down in there. So I was able to fish it out. I mean, everything was fine. I didn't have another lid, and I didn't want to leave the car disassembled, so I actually just inspected the lid very closely. It looked fine, except where you could see a little piece of the grooves missing. And so the next time I change the oil, I'm going to very carefully take that off, and I'm going to go ahead and replace the lid, and I will definitely inspect that all very closely. I didn't expect any issues to come out of that, but you know, it's really interesting to think when other people are changing your oil, what could be going on, and you would be completely unaware of it. I mean, something like that is minor, but all kinds of crazy things could end up happening if somebody else does your oil change and you're not aware of it. Or if you do the oil change and you screw up, at least you're aware of it. So I'm gonna wait until I hit the 10,000 miles or so, change the oil. It'll probably happen sometime this spring or summer, just depending on how much I drive this car. And yeah, so I think I've covered everything. Now just some general final closing thoughts. I just absolutely love this car. Like I said, it's one of my favorite cars I've ever owned. I've owned over 100 cars. You can see many of them on my channel. And yeah, this one's definitely maybe top 5, definitely top 10. It's really an engineering marvel. And side note, I test drove the new 5 Series that came out for 2024. Really didn't like it at all. I did a video about that and it got a lot of hate. It's funny how if people disagree with your opinion about something, they tend to flame you or dislike your video or whatever, and that's fine. Anyway, so I would definitely recommend one of these to anybody. I expect this car to just be very reliable and last a long time, and you know, just check it over if you're gonna buy one. There's actually, as of this video, there's still a few of these for sale in the country. Last I looked, there was like 4 of them for sale. The cheapest one, with I believe a spotty history and high miles, was 33,000 and change. And then there's another one with like 80 some thousand miles. They're asking 38 for. And ones with lower miles, like, but higher than what I have, they're asking in the 40s. They don't seem to be selling very quickly, but this is a very specialized car. Most people probably don't even know that it exists. I actually test drove one of these when they were brand new. my local dealer had one. I still remember that test drive, but the particular one I was driving had an MSRP of $80,000 because it had a lot of options on it, which in today's dollars that would be what, like 90,000. So that's a lot of money for a 5 Series, and at the time I didn't think the value was there. Little did I know that there was only going to be 298 of these before they pulled the plug, because I think that was either before all the Dieselgate stuff happened, or at least I wasn't aware of it at the time, or didn't realize what the impact would be to the diesel market. Anyway, so I have tried to close this video several times and continued rambling. I want to say this is probably my longest video ever on YouTube, so if you are one of the people that happen to like my videos, I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for listening, and say hi down in the comments.